Okay. Second round of community meetings. We had 5 topic meetings at the end of last year. 4 community meetings. We had the interactive mapping survey. We had the community-wide survey last year. We had the comments opened up last year. And this evening, you're going to hear a very brief summary and overview as a result of all that effort. What you're here this evening, we're starting to start seeing a focus and vision by the community as to what it considers to be the most serious and important issues in your community. There are 5 of them, and we focused our meetings around those top 5 responses. And tonight we're going to be talking about environmental sustainability and renewable energy. On Thursday night, April 14th, we're going to look at economic development, downtown, and Route 58 redevelopment. On April 25th, we're going to talk about housing, community services. On April 26th, transportation, utilities, and infrastructure. On April 27th, agricultural, farmland, and historic preservation. There is a sign-in sheet in the room going around. If you have not signed in, please do so. There are handouts in the front of the room, so please take a copy of those. At the conclusion of these 5 topic meetings, committee meetings, we're going to be meeting with the town's various advisory committees. And sometime around June, end of June, beginning of July, we're actually going to start putting recommendations forward to the town board. And then after that, in September, we're looking at having a very first draft of a document available. So I'm going to turn the meeting over to Bob White, president of our consulting team, AKRF. Also this evening we have Vin Corrado from McLean Associates, and they are here to give a presentation and then answer any questions, and we'll turn it over to you, the public.
Thank you, Jeff. And thank you all for coming. It's great to be here and have this conversation where we're going to focus on environment, sustainability, and renewable energy, which is part of that discussion as well. So I recognize Steve to my left, also with AKRF, who's been helping us with the outreach, and folks from the Riverhead who have set this up for us. Just briefly, so tonight we're going to give you a status of the project. Jeff gave you an overview. A summary of the issues. There was a, let's see, I guess the end of 2021. We developed a summary of issues that we presented to the town board in February, and those issues were derived from the meetings that we had in from September through the end of the year, or just before the holidays, which were organized around the 5 planning or hamlet areas, and also we had 5 topic meetings. And it's the continuation of those topic meetings, taking it to the next step, which is an overview of what the goals should be with respect to the comprehensive plan. Sorry, I have to turn around and be sure we're on the same period. Go to the next slide. As Jeff said, this is our timeline. And the red dot speaks for itself. That's where we are. And it's meet with you, meet with the community on what the recommendations are and what the goals and objectives should be for the update. And as Jeff said, we're about halfway through the process. The next sort of third of the timeline is about developing those recommendations, and then that's followed by an environmental impact statement and a plan that goes through a review process. So that's just an overview of where we are at. This is kind of a graphic that just shows you what the planning process is about. I'll go through it quickly, but it's really developing the concepts, which is what we have been doing to date, coming up with this preliminary plan and working our way in the direction of a final plan. You see these little swirly things are where we kind of meet with you and we have this iterative discussion back and forth so that we can get your input on our planning process and your ideas, which have been wonderful to date. We thank you very much for your cooperation and work on this. So this is an update, and we're talking about natural resources today. So this is the vision statement from 2003, just 19 years ago. And I guess we'll be finishing about 20 when we're done next year. So, the natural resources in Riverhead are wide-ranging and diverse. We have, stream corridors, wetlands, the Pine Barrens, Long Island Sound, Peconic Bay. I mean, there's so much to the ecology of Riverhead and the surrounding, environment of Long Island, eastern Long Island. But the idea from the 2003 vision statement was that how important these are, to recognize them and to protect the long-term health, safety, and well-being of these, because they have clearly have an environmental value, and there's also an economic value that goes along with that. And in some, the ecological integrity of Riverhead's natural resources must be maintained and protected. And I think that's a pretty straightforward and important statement. Maybe I'll just stand over here and watch it.
You want comments right away?
I'm sorry?
How are we doing this? You want comments?
Oh, we
right
thought
away?
we'd go through the presentation and
Beautiful.
then
Okay.
take comments. Is that okay?
Just understand.
It seems just
Yeah.
organizationally that's good. And if I stand over here, can you get me? Do you need? Speak louder. Okay, I'll do that. And is that good visually? We're good. Okay, we're good all around. These were the goals from 2003. I guess I don't need to read them off, but I'll just summarize what they were. Protect the ecology that's integral to Riverhead's Pine Barrens and the water quality of Long Island. Protect the quality of the ground and surface waters. Limit the risk of personal injury or property damage from flooding and flooding concerns. And I think we'll talk a little bit about that more later in terms of what that means for the future and climate change, which wasn't so recognized back in 2003, but has sort of moved to the top of the list in 2022. Conserve, protect the bluffs and woodlands that overlook Long Island Sound and the woodland and habitat areas found between Sound Avenue and Long Island Sound. Limit development on soils that are particularly well suited to agricultural use. When I read that, I think it's an important natural resource goal, but it's also, I think, going to be part of our farmland, maybe more focused on our farmland discussion in 2 weeks. Continue to protect rare, endangered plant and animal species and their habitats, and we're taking a second look and an advanced look at advancing that in our update. The preservation and planting of native plants and avoid the planting of invasive species. Design goals, I think, in terms of land use, maybe in part of a subdivision review, to bring back to the extent possible, native plants and reduce the use of invasives. Support initiatives for natural resources conservation and open space preservation, which I think is, a fundamental kind of ecological objectives to preserve one is to restore, but the first step is preserve, because it's a diminishing resource. Increase public education, which I think that's integral and important to any plan. Increase the town's administrative resources for working on natural resource conservation efforts. I think that's more, make sure we got the staff and the staffing to preserve and protect natural resources and manage it. I mean, it's one thing to have these lands preserved. It's another thing to manage them. And hold on, our screen. We're right back. Reducing impervious surfaces and stormwater runoff. It used to be that you would have these office parks with large parking lots, sometimes with twice as much parking than it was necessary, because that was thought to be the demand. But it's good to have the parking that you need, but you also don't want to over-pave your land and just create runoff and unnecessary clearing. And protect properties and the risk of damage and injury from wildfires. And that came up in our 2021 outreach sessions as well. So we did do a community survey. which was online, was done at the meetings, and natural resources. There were a number of issues that came up. These were the top 5, if you will. Farmland and open space preservation being at the top of the list. But natural resources and the environmental protection was identified by at least half of the respondents as being, a priority issue for the comprehensive plan update. So that's why we are focused, and that's why it's one of our focuses in this set of April meetings. What the community saw in terms of, from the survey, in terms of issues for us to address, included in sea level rise and coastal flooding and resiliency as a new issue to take on in the update. And related to that, climate change. And I guess perhaps related to both alternative and renewable energy systems as they become more in use, both around the country, around the globe, and locally. Coastal zone resource management, you're a coastal town, and it's so critical to the preservation of the ecology, the economy, in terms of the preservation of coastal waters and shoreline. Groundwater and surface water quality, building off of what I just said about coastal zone management, but also groundwater as a potable water source. And endangered species, natural resources, and wetland protection. So we see those as we've organized our next step around these themes. Next slide, please. So in terms of flooding, sea level rise, and resiliency, I think we are again talking about how to protect waterfront open spaces or undeveloped land on the waterfront, or in site planning standards, how you protect areas in coastal flood hazard areas and flood protection projects. One way to do that is through updated coastal zone management policies, which are an available tool for land management and environmental review, or review of subdivision and site plan designs through an environmental process. So those are the guidelines for development. Watershed management, the Peconic River watershed, land preservation goals. Nutrient load reduction was identified as a major issue or objective for the Peconic River watershed. And part of that, part of the implementation technique would be improving the quality of stormwater discharges that come from roads, streets, and yard runoff. And also wetland restoration as a way of protecting water quality and ecology. Climate change and emergency preparedness. Want to re-examine, and this came up, I'm not sure how much this was identified or a major issue in 2003, but it's re-examining the long-term planning initiatives as it relates to sea level rise and storm intensity. And I think that's what people have in mind is the Sandy type storms, the nor'easters, the hurricanes that as you look ahead for another 20 years, and we're talking about a 20-year plan, it's not it's intended to be in implementation stage for several decades, as the 2003 plan was, is to look ahead on what climate change means in terms of storms. And others, severe emergency conditions, if you look at changes in weather patterns, how they may affect demand on energy and having redundancy backup systems. Alternative and renewable energy opportunities, which I think locally are related more to solar, and battery storage to augment the distribution system. I think there's clearly on the Atlantic Ocean side wind power in the Atlantic, but I don't see a big opportunity for wind power in Riverhead as much as I see solar and other alternative energy systems as a way to support alternatives to sorry, as a way to support alternative energy systems. And solar panels within industrial and commercial properties where you have big roofs and lots of surface area that could be used not only to protect your building, but to augment energy systems. So the goal statement that we developed for the plan as a draft is to address the effects of climate change and work on completing this climate smart community program, which we'll talk a little bit about in a moment. Balancing the need for renewable energy with other concerns related to siting solar energy projects. There's always a siting issue with any energy system, I suppose. You need to take into account the neighbors and the surrounding properties and the context. And that goes the same with the battery energy storage guidelines. I think you've been getting some applications for battery storage. You know, what needs to be done in terms of setbacks or protection related to emergencies, and what do you need in terms of screening, groundwater monitoring, and ensure clean drinking water. And I'll have another slide about that in a moment. Defining sustainability. So what is it? What does the town need to do to define what it means to the town and the town residents to have a sustainable town? This came up also during our outreach, was reducing solid waste and expanding recycling. And you know, in New York City as well, where I live, there's a big effort to sort of get to zero waste. The achievability of that is a challenge, but you know, nothing wrong with a master plan taking on a challenge. But there are ways to, in today's society, there are ways to, you know, head towards that zero waste. And then collaborate regionally on shared environmental protection initiatives, recognizing that you're part of the, you know, the Suffolk County Eastern Long Island system, and how do we need to match our goals up with those of the neighbors. So this Climate Smart Communities program, it has a series of actions that you can come up with a point system in a way that the town can move forward to reduce greenhouse gas emissions that contribute to climate change, and part of that would be completing this Climate Smart Community program, and achieve those through a checklist and a task force. It sounds like there had been a task force that was in place at one time, but to restart the task force to make to achieve and develop a plan to achieve the goals shown on the right. Steve, I think the next one. Yeah. Develop. You're getting some sun. Develop guidelines for renewable alternative energy systems. So again, I guess as much as there's a benefit to solar energy, we have to look at what the effects are, what the impacts may be with respect to competing uses, neighboring properties. So, and we need to drill down on this a little more, but this is the goal, is to come up with some criteria for site design that would take into account setbacks in neighboring properties. And I think that in the industry, there's starting to look at vertical panels that are developed more vertically rather than horizontally, as we've seen to date. Create guidelines, so in connection with that would be guidelines for utilizing solar and renewables and recycled products in building and site plan design. So that could be something that the town could do locally through its building department guidelines. And the same with the site and building standards to take advantage of solar and require solar for larger commercial industrial buildings. Establish solar ratings in home transactions or house transactions, such that an individual would know where their where their house fits within this, in terms of its use of solar power or the use of the sun to provide energy. And issues to consider, as always, are how solar can support the agriculture community and the preservation of agriculture. And the town could re-examine the industrial zoning and solar permitting process. And with the goal of not compromising other objectives with respect to preserving, enhancing, supporting productive farmland, and maintaining the visual character of the community. This is just a standardized kind of battery storage layout system. So what we want to do is develop some guidance as to how a battery storage site of X acres should look or could look. We recognize the benefits of providing energy support, augmentation, if you will, and what the fiscal benefits could be to the town. But we want to also address the issues of land use compatibility, visual setbacks, and emergency fire and safety. I think it's a rare case, but a challenging case and potentially catastrophic if these catch fire and you don't have the services locally to address such an emergency. Expand groundwater protection and watershed management objectives. I know there's ongoing work with the USGS in terms of modeling and mapping and getting a better assessment of groundwater patterns and quality. And the United States Geologic Service use them as a tool for determining future water supply and demand analysis under the long-range plan. So when we be looking at existing conditions and future conditions, how can we will coordinate with the USGS to assess what the demand may be on water supply, because we've heard a lot, and groundwater conditions. We heard a number of comments about that during our outreach sessions, with the goal, with the primary goal, or one of the goals of being, avoiding saltwater intrusion and knowing what your safe field is. So defining that saltwater interface around Riverhead and taking into account the future water supply needs as we look at the master plan and the other side, which is of the analysis, which is the growth analysis. What is the safe field and what can be supported with respect to providing safe, long-term potable water. I thought this was a good idea. We came up during our outreach, develop and distribute public information fact sheets on groundwater quality and protection, what homeowners and property owners can do to protect groundwater. There was specific issues in the Manorville area. So pursuing funding to develop the infrastructure needed to deliver that clean drinking water. What's necessary in Manorville to ensure that clean drinking water is available both now and in the long term. Initiate designs for the delivery system, and then implement and construct it, and monitor and maintain it, because it's not just building the system, but you also have to monitor, maintain, and do testing over time. Expanding surface water protections and watershed management. We had some excellent ideas on how to develop watershed maps so that folks would know what watershed or sub-watershed they're in with respect to drainage systems and patterns. So you have a heightened awareness of where drainage goes, and then also how you can participate in the protection of water quality. Part of that would be you need to know the direction that water flows, or the surface water drains to, and to raise public awareness on the watershed. Collaborate with the Peconic Estuary Partnership on their comprehensive management plan. That's been underway, but we see that as a continuing goal. Reduce the surface water runoff impacts from streets and properties. So part of that is in a site design, part of that may be in the design for a larger development project or a commercial development project, and may involve retainage of stormwater, slower percolation, but also collaboration with Suffolk County Department of Public Works on street drainage, and we'll talk about that more in the session on infrastructure, April 25th, I think it is. And then pond management and ecology, we had a couple of very specific comments made about the duck ponds to restore and maintain their ecology, their importance as an ecological feature that may involve dredging and then planting and wetland restoration. There is a move to freshwater wetlands protection. There's a move to change or reform the freshwater wetland laws to address smaller freshwater wetlands, which as the state of New York develops, the importance of smaller wetland systems it increases. I think it was 12.4 acres historically. So as you become a more developed community, the remaining wetlands just take on a greater need in terms of preservation. So we think this will be an important. We support it. We think it would be important for the town to support it. And this wetland map that you see here shows you all the little blue. The high concentration of wetlands that you have in the town, and the importance of that protection to the ecology, watershed management, open space preservation. Next slide. Sustainability practices. Just one second.
Come back in a second.
If you're watching online, we're just getting our screen. Okay, here we go. Did we skip? There we go. There we go, yes. So develop a sustainability plan for the town. Sort of provide a comprehensive direction on the steps the town can take. Go back one more.
One more? There we go, sorry.
Oh, okay, all right, thanks. You're off by two. What's the first step? Address and define sustainability. It's kind of a word that's used a lot. And what does it mean? What does it mean to the town? What does it mean to the community in terms of sustainability? It's a pretty all-encompassing kind of word, but what does it mean in the town of Riverhead, and what does it mean to the residents? Possible definitions. I guess we pulled this from a United Nations Commission. Meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. So I think that's a good way of sort of looking at what sustainability means. And we've broken it down into these sort of bulleted points, which we can certainly expand upon with your input. But it's supporting alternative transit systems or transportation systems so that you reduce auto use and improve transportation use. And one way or another way of doing that is to do land planning and smart growth that's oriented around transportation management, to promote energy efficiency and reduce energy demand, solid waste management and recycling, protecting potable water supplies. This is kind of a amalgam of what we've been talking about in the prior slides. Mitigate stormwater runoff, pollutant loads, protecting water quality, climate adaptation, incorporating sea level rise into site planning, and the local waterfront revitalization plan. One of the goals we will be proposing to include in the update is to update and complete the coastal zone management plan, which also is comprehensive and embraces so many of these goals. And to reduce emissions by 50% in 5 years, a goal that we hope and we think the town could achieve. solid waste management and recycling practices. We have a drill down on this environmental and sustainability objective, which at the top of the list is complete the updates to the solid waste management plan. Reduce waste stream and reliance on incineration, and it's not only the means by which solid waste is removed, but also the transportation systems that are necessary to carry it to the Covanta facility. Work with homeowners to landscape and reduce yard waste, another element in the waste stream, just to reduce that, and waste stream reduction is, I guess, the simple way to put that. Create a program for reducing food waste. Great restaurants here in Riverhead. How do we reduce food waste, both at home and in the commercial stream? And develop practices for achieving zero waste. This was a good recommendation we got during the outreach. Study the potential for a glass repurposing facility. As we source and separate, what are the opportunities to take the glass and come up with a repurposing option? Expand recycling practices in public spaces. There was a comment that we got during the outreach about understanding more about contamination in groundwater conditions as it relates to the town's landfill. So coastal zone management, you have wonderful miles of shoreline. Advancing public access. So protect the public open space for both scenic and natural values, and determining the appropriate level of development in the coastal zone. And I guess you have the Long Island Sound and the bluffs and the beauty of that shoreline, as well as the shorelines around the bay. Updating the coastal zone management line in New York City. We recently updated our coastal zone management, and we moved it inland a little bit in locations, and part of that adjustment was to take into account changes in flooding patterns, and also to take into account drainage areas and surface water runoff, where previously that had not been as much of a focus. The focus historically has been on properties that sort of touch a shoreline, whereas we're looking more now, and I think other communities are looking more now at drainage areas and areas that drain the coastal waters. Address coastal storm event flooding and erosion along Long Island Sound, particularly near the bluffs. Develop a plan for flood protecting downtown Riverhead, and there is a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers project that is underway. But we've got a beautiful downtown, a nice walkway. But how do we protect that? And how do we protect that area from flooding in the future, 20, 30, 40, 100 years from now? There we go. So some capital projects that came up during our outreach. We're improving the Wading River Boat Ramp Canal and parking lot. So that would be, I would say, enhancing public access, a targeted project. Upgrading Reeves Beach parking, which is undersized. So again, improving public access to the water, and improving the Roanoke Beach ramp on Long Island Sound. So I think what we have, what we heard primarily during our outreach was we have facilities, let's enhance them, let's make them better, let's improve the waterfront access and make the facilities more user-friendly. And then sort of a wrap-up goal was to enhance environmental awareness, stewardship, and regional collaboration. I think you heard me say a little earlier, how Riverhead, and we all know that, is part of the greater picture on the east end of Long Island and the sensitivity of the environment here. We've just bulletized what we have heard from the community and what we've seen in other towns in terms of prioritizing environmental protection and the rehabilitation and stewardship of vacant town lands. So what lands does the town have that could be used for restoration purposes? update the town's environmental database and maps so that people are aware of how the sensitivities of their properties and how they can use them in a responsible way. Expanding public education on wetlands protection and enhancement. Increasing regional collaboration on environmental management. And I think that's something to be done in concert with other communities. Consumer education on the use of pesticides, the benefits of solar panels, or solar power. Determine the carrying capacity. What is the growth that can be accommodated without damaging the environment irreparably? Protect air quality by promoting transit-oriented development. We heard a little bit about that a couple slides ago, but what are the opportunities for reducing auto use? This was an interesting comment that we got about noise regulations, to update and look at what the current noise code is and how it needs to be enhanced to address ambient noise from existing businesses and special events. Develop a tree inventory and the objective here being to understand what is the outside of the pine barrens, what are the tree clusters and forested habitats in the town, and what can the town do to identify a program that could manage tree and tree clearing and come up with a way of restoration or compensation for tree clearing. Funds could be used to develop, reforest or replant in vacant properties or properties that could accommodate some additional forestation. And identify environmental justice areas and opportunity zones. So we could do that, and we could do that as part of our planning process, looking at demographics and environmental justice areas within the town that we're in. So that is our overview of where we are at with the environmental.
As Bob said, officially on the screen, this is not your last opportunity to comment on this element of the comprehensive plan. There will be future meetings about this. We're going to be meeting with the environmental committee in the next month or so, and that's my lead-in because the co-chair for the environmental committee is with us this evening. I'm going to ask him to come forward, and that would be Mark Hobner. And Mark, we're very fortunate to have you on the committee.
Thank you for the invitation. I want to thank the AKRF, and I know we got an email from Lorianne DeFalco in the last couple of days to have us play a part in all of the things that we're talking about tonight. Sorry, what do you want me to do?
Perfect.
Oh, like that?
There you go.
Okay, good.
Now you got step forward. There you go. So you're
This is going to cost you extra. So, so thanks for the invitation on that. We've got a lot of work to do, but it doesn't have to wait till the comprehensive plan is done. It could be done today, tomorrow. We've been doing it. I mean, our environmental advisory committee has certainly been chiseling away at these things. The Climate Smart Communities is part of the DEC program. It is a program of the DEC, which is comparable to the NYSERDA, which is the New York State Energy Research and Development Agency, which has a different program, but parallel. So if you work with a clean energy community, which we are, we have been registered, and we're working towards certification on that. And if you do something for the the clean energy community work, then you get points on your Climate Smart community work, and vice versa. So they're not competing with each other. The big difference between DEC and NYSERDA programs are that the DEC is a matching grant, so if we get 20,000, we have to pony up 10,000. The grants are anywhere from 10,000 to $1 million. That fund is refilled every year. And I want to point out that the NYSERDA program has a population limit of 40,000. So if we go to 40,000 people, so we need to hurry because we got 36,540. We need to hurry before we get to 40,000 because then we start competing with towns in the state of New York of 1 million. All right, there are 20 grants that are given out from Climate Smart Communities, but only 10 given out from the NYSERDA program, the Clean Energy Committees. So there's a balancing act there. But we leave a lot of money on the table. And these programs aren't really hard. We're talking about recycling. All we need to do is put blue barrels out at the beach. It's not that simple. But to start working, we've started working with Parks and Rec on doing this. We'll be meeting with them again in another week or two. There's also big money that needs to be talked about tonight, and we have somebody from the Peconic Estuary Partnership to talk about that in a bit. Okay, but there's a lot of opportunity, and they're not hard. These things are not hard. The harder thing is going to be food waste is 40%, whereas regular recycling is about 10 or 15%. Food waste is 40% of our solid waste stream. So we've been working with that in Southold, and we'll be bringing that program here. It's going to look very different in Riverhead than it does in Southold, right? Because the contractors and the carters and the self-haulers, all of these things change from town to town. But I guess that enough? Yeah, that's enough. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. I think through the efforts that we've done through the comprehensive plan and through more importantly, the environmental committee and Mark's effort and other organizations such as the Nature Conservancy and Peconic Land Trust, ongoing preservation efforts are ongoing. The preservation of Broad Cove, huge acquisition effort to protect the Peconic Estuary Bay and Peconic River. So efforts are going forward as we speak. The comprehensive plan will help us with future grant opportunities. So what we're doing this evening goes a long way towards achieving our goals in the near future rather than towards the end of our process. I apologize, the remote microphones don't seem to be working or cooperating this evening. So with your comments, I'd like to have you come forward, unless you want to try it. All right, we're going to try the remote. We're going to be optimistic.
Jeff just mentioned for folks online that we'll get to them also.
And for the people that are watching via Zoom, we are not going to forget about you. I know that tends to happen on occasion. We are not going to forget you this evening, I promise. All right, so anybody with your comments and questions?
Why don't you repeat the question? That would be good.
Okay.
Whatever the questions are.
Well, I got to tell you, some of you are going to be more long-winded. I can see some organizations here that really have a lot to get off their
Oh, here's a good long wire.
Okay, we have a longer wire coming? All right. Kevin, I know that you're chomping at the bit. We have Kevin McDonald with us from the Nature Conservancy. Kevin, welcome.
Thank you.
We'll wait for you to get a microphone so we can record you.
They're going to have to come. Are you taking comments from everybody, or?
Absolutely. Everybody that's going to come this evening. There's no speaking limit. If you forget something, you want to come back, and I'll come back after other speakers have had a chance to speak. By all means. And Kevin is part of one of our technical advisory committees. He graciously volunteered his time.
I did.
Kevin, you're going to need to step up here.
Oh, sorry.
So that
Okay.
you're...
I got it. Stand here. Understood. Thank you. Jeff, thanks for inviting me. I'm pleased to be here. I'm Kevin McDonald with the Nature Conservancy. So a couple of things jump right out. And I would like to underscore the critical importance of incorporating really good work that's already been done, and it took 7 years to get it done, since 2015 till today, and it's incorporated with the Long Island Nitrogen Action Plan and the county's sub-watershed plan for nutrient load reduction. So this is the best science that exists. The 208 study used to be the Bible everybody spoke about and talked about since 1978 as the guidance for water quality. That is an old document. It's still good for general discussion. The recent work done by the county on the sub-watershed plan is the best document. It talks about where you have nitrogen load reduction targets that have to be met. It tells you where the nitrogen load is coming from and how you develop your strategies to pursue that. It is absolutely essential that this very expensive work that's been done over the last 5 to 7 years be incorporated into your plan. And while I know it's referenced occasionally, it's inconceivable to me that the town of Riverhead would not have a large focus on both the Long Island Sound and what it means as an economic engine, a tourism appeal, as well as quality of life and recreational opportunity for the residents and visitors here. So I would strongly urge a greater focus in your vision, include surface waters, those opportunities, the value that provides to the residents and visitors, and why people come here. At one point, as we were going through the discussion, I thought I was going, where's the reference to surface water? That must be more prominently demonstrated in here. I think it's reasonable. I understand the solar energy issue in the community. I think you sort of, you're heading in the right direction with that. I think it's clearly an issue and you have to figure that out. I get it. But I just think you need to focus much more deeply on water and what the recent and more current science is telling us about the load reductions that have to be met. And, it's nice to educate the public and it's nice to give them maps, but you need policies that address the water quality needs that face this community. That's how things get rectified. So, if you're not focusing there, you're avoiding the harder issues because they're hard. That's why they're hard. You gotta go and get the hard issues fixed. And that's why this consulting team, with all the skills they certainly have, and the vast contract that you likely have, can be deployed to help solve these issues. I'm not flippant about that. These are solvable problems. They require hard choices that the town board must address, or you're just going to do this again in 15 years and say, we're just really that much further behind because we never dealt with it. So my strongest recommendation to you, and I'm volunteering to help, but there's just got to be a much more prominent placing of surface water quality, the relationship between groundwater that's contaminated and how that's getting into your surface water, which is the problem, and how you have to deal with that. That's so essential. And Joyce Novak is here. She can even speak better to this than I, and I would strongly encourage you to beef that section up of the report in spades.
Joyce, can I impose upon you to come up? See what happens when you volunteer or get volunteered? But seriously, Joyce, thank you for everything. Watch out for the cord.
Hi, so I think what Kevin means by we need to get work is he's going to volunteer me to do some of that work, and that's fine. For those of you who don't know, I'm the executive director of the National Estuary Program in the Peconics, and I think I can echo the need for stronger water quality targets in this document. The Western Peconics, Terry's Creek, Meeting House Creek, the Lower Peconic is the only nitrogen TMDL in the Peconic system. I think it's really important that this should be noted and to use the now updated Suffolk County Sub-Watershed Plan with targets to address a lot of the things in there. I think that there's a lot of talk about climate change, which is a very obtuse and not specific way of saying we have this issue, but there's not a lot of specific targets there. There are tools available that look at a parcel by parcel analysis throughout the town with recommendations for preservation, whether that is farmland preservation or open space preservation. Looking with that in concurrence with sea level rise, with flooding, with depth of groundwater, with necessary areas for wetland migration. Those tools are there. And so, that does really then lead to the policy issue, which is they're not being used the way they could be. The same goes for environmental justice. New York State has a map of proposed EJ areas right now. There's other websites that look at a variety of definitions of diversity, inclusion, and environmental justice that again can sort of give you this parcel level information that the town, it would behoove them to use the existing tools, not replicate it, to be able to make decisions going forward. I also want to stress that we're in a really fortunate financial time over the next couple of years. Money will be coming down the line. So having a comp plan that is well thought out, that has specific targets, that delineates necessary areas for a variety of surface water and groundwater remediations, land preservations, having that information at the ready to access money that is coming both from the federal and the state level is really important, and getting the town board engaged. The National Estuary Programs have funding available, but the towns have to be engaged. They have to be willing to engage for projects like stormwater remediation in and around Riverhead. So I think I've talked enough, but certainly any of the tools at my disposal are your tools. So please reach out and we can give them to you. More specific targets, I think, are really necessary.
Cool.
Thank you, Joyce. All right, anybody else from the public, please come forward. You have to come to the microphone, Sid, unfortunately.
The person on screen is on her hand.
Yes, we're going to get to for the people waiting in the chat room.
She can speak anytime. Yep.
All right, can we, Joan, can you just hold on 1 second? I have Sid Bale coming up first, and then we'll call on you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Planning for the next 20 years is a very daunting task. And there was some mention made about the 2003 comp plan. One of the things that was extremely useful for us in 2003 as a tool was a abstract list the town prepared of the projects that were currently before the town. And for instance, you know, I would hope that AKRF has been delving into what those projects are. Like for instance, way back in 2003, there was concern about the amount of residential development in the town. And the information that we gathered, or the town divulged to the citizens of the town, indicated there was a tremendous number of projects there. Now, what about the other components? Industrial, commercial, okay, special permit applications. There are all sorts of rumors going around that there is a sizable number of these things out there. This is the third forum in the last month or so where I've mentioned the idea of not the idea, but I've requested that the town make this information available to the public. It should be part of the public record. I think it could be extremely useful for AKRF, et cetera. If we have an abundance of commercial projects, for instance, that has strong environmental issues connected with it. And if these commercial projects fall in maybe one or two parts of the town, that also I think would be extremely important. So I'm urging the town to get it together and make those lists available. And please, AKRF, take this seriously and look into what projects are out there and that are currently being discussed. Thank you very much.
All right, we have a hand raised in our chat room. And that's Joan, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes.
Hi, Joan, can you hear us?
Yes, I can, thank you.
All right.
First, I want to agree with Ms. Novak in that the goals should be, for any of the things that we're doing in the comprehensive plan, should be specific and measurable. And as I look back on the 2003 goals, it prompts me to ask, how does the town assess its progress, success hopefully, on achieving the 2003 goals? Can you tell us which ones you feel you've been successful in achieving? And if we haven't been successful, are these goals going to be carried forward in the new comprehensive plan? And if so, which ones will be carried forward? Because I didn't see them in the new goals. Thank you.
The quick answer to that is yes, they can. They will be included as a list of recommendations for the town board's consideration.
Right, but how have we performed against the 2003 goals? Which ones have we accomplished? Which ones still need work?
I guess, can we go back to the,
You gotta come, Bob, you gotta
oh,
come.
right.
We're gonna have Bob White come up to the microphone and address that.
Which slide do you want, Mark?
We're just going to go back to the slide that had the 2003 goals, which is like 4 or 5. I think. There we go.
Sorry, overshot. There we go.
I guess to the point that you're making is these were goals. There's not a lot of quantity here. They're kind of goals and recommendations that are well thought through. But I think what we need to do, and what I think I'm hearing, is we got to be drill down on them. I can't say that any of these has been, achieved and no longer has to be under consideration, because I think they kind of, they come along with this as we go through time. But what I think I'm hearing is when we talk about a goal of limit future increases in impervious surfaces and stormwater runoff, that's sort of a broad brushed goal. And what we want to do is drill down on that and come up with more specific recommendations as to how a site development project, be it residential or commercial, implements that goal, or how we implement the goal of preserving native plants and reducing, the pervasiveness of invasive plants. Does that answer your question?
Well, what it tells me is that we haven't measured any of our progress on these goals because we've never established a specific outcome and no metrics by which to measure our accomplishment on them. And my hope is that we will retain these goals as well as the new goals you propose, and then again, we'll put specific targets and measurements, metrics. How will we measure success against each one of these?
Okay.
If we took, I don't know, number 3 here on the 2003, limit risk of personal injury or property damage by excessive claim concerns. We can measure that through insurance claims. We can measure that through damage to town properties. The amount of money spent repairing it. We need to, I think, in the comprehensive plan update, have specific goals and measurements for them. Otherwise, we're spinning our wheels. We're just going to rehash the same thing over and over again.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think we heard some of that in terms of number 2 about nitrogen reduction and coming up with quantities that are measurable as opposed to qualitative statements.
Thank you.
Joan, I'd like to expand upon that idea a little bit. Is at the end of this comprehensive process, when we ultimately adopt the comprehensive plan, I do not want to see the document just sit on the shelf waiting for the next 20 years. As part of this element, I've asked Bob to look into it. I believe that there should be a strategic plan element to it that identifies a number of the goals and policies that you've seen outlined not only in the 2003 plan, but also in the current plan, that have specific years and target dates with what to do. For example, there should be an immediate here, we need to do this now, policy that needs to be implemented now. And we've heard, for example, from Mark Hovner, where he's starting to embark upon some of that effort. There should be a year 1 to 5 series of goals and recommendations and the means to achieve that objective. There should be a section on year 5 to 10, longer term goals and objectives and the means to achieve those goals and objectives. And then there's the long-term goals. So I think as part of this, there should be a strategic plan element. And when I said I don't want to see the plan be put up on a bookshelf, my goal as a planner is to see the website continue beyond the adoption of the plan itself. It should be a living document. It should be continued going forward. It should be something that's reviewed on an annual basis. Did we achieve our goals in the year 1? If not, why not? If so, great. What are the next round of goals that need to be looked at? So I don't see the document as a standalone. It needs to be a living, breathing document that goes beyond the adoption. And Tommy has her hand up. You want to come up? You have to come up to the microphone.
May I suggest that it becomes more than just a document, but that perhaps you have annual public meetings like this at which you update the public on the progress?
That's an excellent idea.
On the comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Okay, Tommy, watch out for the cord,
I
please.
see it, yeah. Thank you. I'm just going to be so very brief because what Jones brought up and what you brought up, Jefferson, I want to echo, and maybe something that could be followed in order to achieve it is an acronym that's, I think it's, I'm looking it up here online. It's an Atlassian.com acronym. It's SMART, SMART, S, specific, M, measurable, A, achievable, R, relevant, and T, timely. If we follow that as a recipe and follow the other suggestions that have just been made, maybe that would help.
That summarizes exactly what I was trying to recommend, so Tommy, thank you for that. Anybody else? You have to come up to the microphone. I apologize. If you come up, just watch out for the cord, please.
Thank you.
My question is more specific. On here, the 2003 plan, number 3, as was brought out before, it talks about limiting the risk of personal injury or property damage, and specific to the Peconic River. And then I noticed on page 6, the climate smart communities, it says that under review, there's a strategic relocation out of flood-prone areas. I was wondering what that means. Is that for the residences?
It's used in certain communities as a way to have properties that may be subject to repeat flooding. At some point, it kind of makes more fiscal sense to acquire that property if it's a repeat flood insurance or flood damaged property. I don't know if or where, or does that at all apply to any property in the town. I can't say. I do know, and I grew up in a town in New Jersey that had Wayne that was repeatedly in the news every spring for heavy flooding on the Passaic River, and it would be the same places that were flooded every spring. And at some point, you kind of wonder whether it's appropriate for people to live there, because there's the risk of rescuing them, and then there's the risk of the damage and the replacement of the property all the time. So, as I said, I'm not saying that that's the case for any property here, but I think we would have to look at that as part of this analysis. And then the other part of it is raise, relocate, and reduce the potential for flood damage in conjunction with overall reduction of flood impact on a neighborhood and a community. Did that answer your question?
And as you may recall, that has happened in the town of Riverhead. I was trying to get Kevin's attention, trying to remember the area. It was Horton Avenue. That I think there were at least 5 houses that suffered repetitive loss, and the government had to step in and buy those houses and then bulldoze them because it was such a flood-prone area that was the best recourse. And we hate to displace families, but in the end, it was the best thing for everybody. I see a bunch of people in the room. Please, this is your opportunity. Come forward. One thing we talked about are wetlands. We're going to go to the community. Wetland mapping. George Bartnick is with us this evening. George has been here since a very long time. He is responsible for our current wetland mapping, and it's amazing how accurate they are, but in the need of being updated. And we're trying to find the funding source, George, as we speak, to do so. The technology today is infinitely greater than it was back when they were originally done, and we just have to find the money to do it, and we're committed to doing that, and we're going to do it. We want to do it. Okay, back to our Zoom, to our virtual audience. If you would like to speak, please click on the hand icon. That's an indication that you'd like to chat with us.
Ethel Sussman asked me to ask a question.
Ethel, go right ahead.
How are the actions of the town affected by these goals? For example, why was the downtown parking lot renovated by removing trees and increasing the impervious surface, which seems to be in conflict with the stated goals?
That is the age-old question of function and form. We obviously have a flood-prone area. We can't put buildings in that area. We obviously have a parking problem. We need more parking in the downtown area. And right now, we're actually decreased the amount of impervious. We bought the downtown square properties. We're going to put a public plaza and a park, have it much more of an green open space. We have hired the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to help us do a floodplain management program for our downtown area. So we're trying to address that issue as we speak, concurrently with the efforts of the master plan. Anybody else in? Yep, sir. Yep, come on up, please. I apologize. When you come up, just please be mindful of the cord. I know I keep repeating myself. Just identify yourself for the record. Thank you very much.
Steve Shapiro from the Wading River Civic Association. And one question, talk about the water quality. What about cesspools and the sewage treatments of the individual homes? Is that being considered?
George, are you coming up to address it, or are you just getting up to ask a question?
Stretching, man.
Oh, okay.
I have another question. Okay. Do I answer this one first?
Yes.
Okay. The groundwater quality. The county health department now mandates every new house construction and every house building expansion to use what's called the IA system. It's called Innovative and Alternative.
Yes.
I'm looking at Kevin to make sure I got the acronym correct. Which right now under a cesspool, it's about 60 parts per million of nitrogen. 90. And I remember Kevin was the one that taught me about nitrogen loading. I used to think that septic systems treated nitrogen. Kevin was one that educated me that they are not. So Kevin, thank you for that. The IA systems, they're brand new. So we're gonna have some successes and we might have some things that need to be revisited, and over time, we're gonna fix the things that need to be fixed, and overall, it's a long-term benefit for the groundwater quality. So it's not gonna happen overnight by any stretch of the imagination. There's so many houses that are in the county that need to be retrofitted for the IA systems. Cesspools are no longer allowed, they're illegal. So we hope that every new home, they have to, by the county requirements, tie into these IA systems, and they're reducing the nitrogen level as low as, I'm gonna look at Kevin, 10 parts per million?
Sorry, what?
What's the optimum groundwater nitrogen level of the IA system? About 10 parts per million?
My Fuji system gets below 10.
So there you go, going from 90 down to below 10. That is a success. We just have to do it more frequently.
The second question, which is not related to this, but it could be related to the environment and also to transportation. Is there a plan of putting more self-charging units for electric cars since they're increasing?
Yes, and actually, we're not the town's not the one that's initiating it. The private sector is the one that's calling us, asking if they can put more charging stations in. And we say absolutely, the only thing that we require is a building permit.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience? Anybody, Chip, anybody in top who's gonna come back up? She's raising her hand. She's conferring with Sid Bale. It's the first time I've ever seen you blush, Coffrey.
Just one cocktail does it. Hello, am I doing the right thing here? Hi. I'd like to follow up what Sid Bale brought up earlier about the very strong urge for the town to provide an inventory of applications online in the form of a spreadsheet. So my suggestion is an example. So I would like to see a spreadsheet document online with just 4 headers. Name of the application, or name of the applicant, date of the application, and the type, maybe commercial, industrial, residential, subdivision, whatever, special permit, whatever it is, and then its location. And what those 4 things can do, it can help us as we're civics to know what's going on and what might be planned for our hamlet. And we also can look and see across Riverhead and understand what people are wishing to do in other areas of the town. So my request is for an example to be up on the website in the form of a spreadsheet. Thank you.
As the building and planning administrator, I will commit and promise that we will do that for you.
That deserves a huge thank you. Huge.
No.
Because it's been asked for a while, and I'm very thankful. Thank you.
I just want to say for the first time in 10 years, we actually have 3 full-time planners reviewing applications, 3 full-time planners that are helping out with long-range planning in the town. Things are turning around for us in the planning department, and we're very grateful for that. So, anybody else? Chip?
No one's raised their hand?
Joyce is coming back up. Excellent. I've never met Joyce before, so I've only dealt with her through Zoom and virtual, so this is the first time I get to see her in person. So,
Well, it's nice to be here. So as we talk a lot about an increased planning department and having more staff and achieving goals for climate resiliency, something that the estuary program hears all the time from all of the East End towns is a need to update codes, to look at zoning, and I think that's probably an integral part of any comprehensive plan as a first step before you get to your SMART goals. And I would add to those SMART goals, cost, right? If you can put on your projects now an estimated cost with all of those other measurable targets, then you are in an even better position if money comes up from external sources to be able to apply for it and to develop a 20-year plan for funding specific pieces of your plan. But a barrier that a lot of towns face is outdated codes and zoning that really prohibits them from even good intentioned changes. So I would look to that also.
I strongly concur with that, and the one thing that we're looking at, and I'm going to be looking towards Mark Hobner's help with this, is when we review the larger scale commercial industrial applications, is to looking at trying to get them to be as close to net zero as possible. And it's pulling teeth with the applicants, so we're going to need the community's help and support in trying to encourage that and get it codified, and that would be a year 1 recommendation. So, anybody else, Chip, anybody else in the Zoom line? Nope, anybody?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
here we go. Yes. Jim Durenz coming up.
James, are you there? Jim, can you hear us?
He should be up in a second.
I'm just concerned with the plan that's under consideration. He's also taking into consideration the Hyde Estuary plans for 2-acre site on a location on Main Road in Aquabog by Church Avenue. I know listening in earlier, someone made some comment about it, and I didn't know if there's any more details that either Mr. Murphy or one of the others can share with us about the status of that project.
Meeting House Creek, yeah.
South side of Main Road and Church Avenue in Aquabog.
Church Lane, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can give a status if you want.
Yep.
Yes, if you would, Jim, Joyce is going to come up and address that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the Meeting House Creek Wetland Restoration Project is a stormwater wetland remediation project and is currently in the planning and construction phase. We've just finished sediment samples and soil borings. That is fully funded, currently the planning phase with about $130,000 from federal funds. So we're excited to have that engineering design underway. And the full build out for the Meeting House Creek wetland design or wetland restoration and construction, which will service about 6 acres of that subcatchment that currently floods all the time, has just been approved a couple weeks ago by our management committee to use bipartisan infrastructure law funds in the amount of $600,000. This was prompted in large part from a $50,000 commitment from Assemblywoman Jody Giglio at this site. So as the National Estuary Programs will see infrastructure funds over the next 5 years, we're looking to areas that have this level of coastal resiliency infrastructure plans sort of ready to go, and this particular site had been prioritized in large part from engagement with Drew Dilliam in the, on staff here in the town of Riverhead. But in order to move it forward, we do need to work with the town board to figure out how best to do that, so that is part of our next steps. But that's the status of Meeting House Creek. We are working with the engineers, and we'll actually be looking to have a stakeholder meeting, hopefully by June, so that the larger community can be as involved as they'd like to be as that unfolds.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Marcus, identify. Jim done? Jim's done?
He's finished.
Okay. I want to follow up on Jeff's comment about net zero. It's a lovely thing to build a building that is providing as much energy that it needs for itself. But wonderful things are coming at us with state laws. The Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, the CLCPA, is running a 2050 goal of net zero. They will be demanding it. The Reformed Energy Vision 2030, the Rev 2030, is 100 months away. We have 100 months to bring our emissions down by 40% and to get renewables into our town at 70%. So all of the things we say, these are all wonderful things to do, but they're also going to start taking the carrots away. We had carrots for charging stations for several years. The Climate Smart Community Program was built in 2008, about, I think, and that was a lot of years ago, and we didn't do anything really to, we did a lot, I'll take that back. George has left the building, but George Bartnick worked with our engineering department, with Ken Testa and Jason Blizzard, and they got our first 80 points out of 120 towards our bronze certification. We're registered for a lot of years, but we're not certified yet. I would like to see the next 40 points come from non-energy things, because they're getting harder and harder to do. The DEC and the NYSERDA are starting to take the easy things away, like charging stations. They're not worth any points anyway. They were worth 3 before, but now they're not. CCA is another, the Community Choice Aggregation program is also going away because of the rate structure with LIPA. It didn't make any sense to do. The community solar projects, a couple of the faith-based communities started with that. And they've been working on it for 3, 4, 5 years. Finally got them through, but they're only servicing 50 or 60 households with their effort after 5 years. So we're starting to back away. We've got resources. NYSERDA has a guy over at Malloy College of the Sustainability Institute, Andrew Mannett. That's what he does for work. He can't wait to help us do this. Whether he comes and presents to us, if Lynn Arthur comes and presents to us, Joyce has presented to us, there's no end to the amount of help we have. It's just a matter of getting it done. But like I said, the Rev 2030 is coming at us, CLCPA is coming at us, we've got considerations with low-income communities, and we're listed, and I've got to pull that document again this week, but Calverton and 2 zones of Riverhead are specifically named as low-income communities. I've forgotten the proper term for that too, I'm sorry, but what is it? Yeah, but there's another thing, there's another legal thing to go with the environmental justice thing. We're eligible for all sorts of money and help and programs and free phone calls to Albany. So we need to stop leaving this stuff on the table. We need to start taking advantage of this stuff. Whether it's simple grant writing or doing a program, the recyclable program with the blue bins. It's not a big money thing, but it is an effort. And we can showcase this. We need to be ahead of this. The stretch code, I forgot to mention. The stretch code is another one. To put into code, it's already templated. You can just copy and paste it into your code and codify a 10 to 12% increase in energy savings on new buildings or renovations, major renovations, including residential, commercial, industrial. So it's all there. But again, I know we've heard the barriers to this behavior. The barriers are that it's going to cost more to build a building. I had a heat pump installer tell me that it's going to be $3,000 extra on the cost of a new home. New home's $500,000. Where does $3,000 matter if we're getting this done? So if we codify it and we incentivize it, I think we'll be doing very well very quickly. Thanks. I turned it off. Oh, good luck.
I think you heard one thing from Mark that needs to be considered, though, is it might be $3,000 to install it, but over time, you should be able to recoup it, shouldn't you?
The payback on a heat pump is 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, 3 to 5 year payback. So there's initial down payment, but you'll recoup that, and beyond the year 5, you will actually be recouping some of that investment. One thing we've heard, and we talked about, is having more of a strategic plan element with identifying short-term, immediate goals and implementation strategies. We're going to be relying on Joyce and Mark and the people that are the experts in the field in terms of identifying what are the immediate things that we can look at to codifying. And there are things apparently now that we should be doing. We can start doing that now. We don't have to wait for the comp plan to be adopted, but what is the most bang for the buck that we can do in the short term? Yes, I said we got more planners, but we are limited in terms of what we can do in terms of application review. So identifications of what the low-lying fruit are would be really helpful to us. Anybody else? Chip? Anybody in the waiting room? If you're waiting in the waiting room with the Zoom, raise the icon, chat hand. If you're in the room live, raise your hand.
How about Lorianne the front gal, maybe? Lorianne, she just put a link up. If you want to speak, Lorianne?
Is Lorianne coming on?
She should be.
Okay. Lorianne, you there?
Maybe that was the test from earlier.
No, she just put a link up for this.
Oh, there we go. Hi,
Oh,
can you hear me? Yeah, I just put a link up to the state's disadvantaged communities criteria. I think Mark was speaking about recent draft criteria to identify communities similar to EJ, but that have been underserved in terms of access to clean, green sources of energy. put a link up there for some more information about those. So that's a great comment, like something that's recent, that's been coming up, that we should definitely take into account in this plan update.
Chip, anybody else in the waiting room?
That was good, thank you, Jim. That was correct.
All right, Lorian, Mark Hoffner says thank you.
Nobody wants to speak. There are people, but.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else in the room? I'm going to go around one last time. Anybody else? Again, okay, we're going to wrap up the meeting this evening. We're going to be back here again on Thursday night. We're going to talk about economic development, downtown, and Route 58. Thank you again for attending, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you.